Okay.
Don't worry, that's just the Zoom. That one's not live streaming anymore. Okay. Are we ready? Okay, my darling. You don't have
Oh
a...
my gosh, we were here for panting on the things.
These are super duper good. I think we'll be okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we're just gonna snuggle close on there, like on the inside.
You're gonna have to lay down so you do. Here, let's sit over here.
Here we are. You're gonna be my everything again. All right, hello everyone. Welcome to our chat about all things postpartum. I'm Dr. Kelly Sadowskis, and these for the live just kind of we're snuggling in together.
It's a cold winter evening.
It's a cold winter. We're going to be cozy together. So, Dr. Kelly Sadowskis, I'm a double board certified pelvic physio, and I love helping people know more about their amazing bodies, especially in this special postpartum phase. I'm so happy for everyone to see in person and you all online.
And I am Lindsay Jones. I have my MS in Nutrition and Integrative Health, and I own Idaho Integrative Wellness.
That's awesome. And this is our third fun little series all about all things women's wellness. And it's been so fun to get together and get all this information together and out there because we don't get enough of it. So, postpartum basics. The biggest questions we always get from a pelvic floor perspective are, how do I get my core back? How do I get my pelvic floor back? And that is a great, valid question. And it begins in the pregnant phase when we are honoring our changing body and making sure that we stay connected to the muscles of the deep tummy and shoulders as our beautiful body changes, and that we help it become stronger as it's adapting to this growing baby. And at the same time that the tummy and the butt and the shoulders are getting stronger, the pelvic floor stays pliable. And so during the whole pregnancy, but especially the second and third trimesters, that is the time to manage any pain that we have going on. That is the time to say, heck yes, sister, I know exactly where my pelvic floor is and I know how to relax it. Because that's what's going to set us up for the best delivery, which will then set us up for the best fourth trimester or recovery. So it's all contiguous. I think sometimes we say the best time to do something was like 20 years ago or something. So the best time to prepare our pelvic floor for postpartum is prenatal, but the second best time is now, whenever you're watching this. So if you've watched some of the other ones, you guys, we've done something called the Big Three, and we're actually going to start with a brief version of that today. And what the Big Three are is that they're three very simple but very specific exercises to help your brain find the muscles of your tummy, pelvic floor, and diaphragm. And if you don't know, the diaphragm's your breathing muscle. It's up here. And your tummy stabilizes your low back and your pelvis from the front. And then your pelvic floor stabilizes your pelvis from the bottom. And this is Patty, the pelvis. As your amazing body is growing this baby. There we go. So it's like legitimately like the size, right? Things change. And so what happens is if we don't specifically attend to these parts, the brain will try to dissociate from those parts, and it will use too little of the tummy and too much of the pelvic floor, which is the typical reason that we might have pain problems, pee problems, poop problems as pregnancy develops. And then as we come to delivery, those things need to soften and get out of the way. And then postpartum, baby's gone now, and baby's out of the tummy. And these tummy muscles were just 2 to 3 times their normal length, but they didn't have to do any work out there because baby was just holding them out there. And now that baby's out, they don't know, the brain doesn't know how to find them again. But the same basic connectors that can help you connect to your pelvic floor during pregnancy can help you reconnect postpartum. So do we want to try them? Okay, so we can grab a little hand towel. Where did mine go? And we can roll it in half, fold it in half once this way, fold it in half once this way, and then roll it like so. So it's about the size like of our fist. And then we're going to put it right under our pelvis, right where our pelvic floor muscles go. Move mine. I'll model my baby out to the side there. And it goes like right where the bike seat goes to kind of preferentially push up on those pelvic floor muscles. So prenatal, we want to sit on this rolled towel and we want to relax our belly deliberately and take a couple belly breaths into the lower belly. Breathe in, lower belly gets bigger, breathe out, lower belly comes back. This reminds your sweet diaphragm that even as baby grows, it still has the capacity to move downwards. It's different than when you weren't pregnant, but it can still come down. As you inhale and the belly gets bigger, please tune your attention now to the actual pelvic floor that's touching that towel. I don't think you're going to pee yourself. That's not why you're on the towel. You're on the towel for a target. As you inhale, can you feel muscles in that space and can you soften them into that towel? As you exhale, can you keep them relaxed? And what we're looking for is some semblance of feeling, some pressure up and down, some blossoming sensation. And that's important for us to tune into prenatally because that's what we need to do during contractions during delivery. Ooh, so cool. Now, second exercise, once we feel that moving down, can you keep the pelvic floor touching this towel while you gently engage your deepest, lowest tummy? Hug baby up towards your spine, but keep your rectum relaxed. Keep your tummy or keep your pelvic floor relaxed. Good job. Hugging baby and breathing. This is called supported breath. This is the piece that's going to help your brain find your tummy no matter where you are in the pregnancy. Pretty cool, huh? Relax everything. And then the final piece is a Kegel and a relax. So tuning in just to the pelvic floor parts, touching the towel, Kegel and lift, rectum, vag, and urethra away from the towel, and then relax them back down. Can you sense both of those directions? So that's the big three. And doing that each day of our pregnancy will continue to keep your brain connected to these core parts so that you have the capacity to relax the key parts in delivery. If you're like, I'm unsure of what I'm feeling, get your cute butt to a pelvic PT in person because we can help. Postpartum, it's important to reconnect to those exact same groups. And if baby comes out vaginally, there's a whole lot of stretching happening in these tissues. Most first-time deliveries, the active stage of labor, that's like when shit starts to get real, for lack of a better word, when you like can't laugh through contractions anymore, to about the time you're able to start pushing, or we can start to kind of like see the head. That's usually a minimum of like 6 hours of that active labor. And then the actual delivery portion is usually a minimum of 2 hours that first time. The faster things happen, the more propensity for soft tissue change. And so that's kind of important to know. And that's just a nice mental well-being thing. Like if you're like, oh, this is taking forever. That's actually a good thing. You want things to progress slowly. But postpartum, the speed with which your labor happened directly affects how you're going to recover. So if you happen to have a super fast labor and delivery, great for you, but we want to be super kind to your tissues because they didn't really have a time to soften and stretch. If we had a super long labor and delivery, there's kind of this like happy medium. If we needed a cesarean to keep you and baby alive, thank God we have that available, right? So we didn't do anything wrong if we end up there. We're very grateful we have that as an option. We still want to honor that the body is now also healing this wound here. So in this postpartum phase, the 4th trimester, the 12 years after delivery, 12 years.
It's a whole lifetime thing.
I have a 12-year-old. Oops, I'm still in the 4th trimester. Yeah. We really want to honor the healing of whatever has been strained during delivery. So it's absolutely the pelvic floor, regardless of how the baby came out. There's a wound on the inside of the uterus, and then we may have the cesarean wound. So the day after we have our baby, however baby comes out, we can do what I call the big 2. The first is relaxed breathing. That is the same thing we just did. Oh, and if we're still on our towels, you can come off your towels now.
I'm like, no, I need this for the next 5 years.
Exactly.
Hell yes.
And you probably, if this is, the day after our baby, we're probably not going to be wanting to sit on a towel. That would be like a lot too much pressure. But we're going to breathe in and we're going to try to relax that belly. And this is regardless of if we've had a C-section or a vag delivery. We're going to breathe into the lower tummy and back out. This does so many important things. Having a baby is a marathon of an experience, and it is hard on your brain to understand exactly what happened, and your sympathetic nervous system is going to be a little jacked up. This belly breathing helps calm it back down. It also helps remind your sweet diaphragm that has been pushed up into your lungs for the last 2 or 3 months. Hey, baby's gone. You can breathe down this way again. The diaphragm might not naturally go back to that. And that is an important part for your forever after. For wanting to be able to get back to the things that you love, we have to have a very functional diaphragm. And this is a perfect place to start it. So we inhale down and we feel the belly expanding. We take as deep of a breath as feels comfortable, never pushing into a hard, painful barrier. Also trying to tune into those pelvic muscles. And to be truthful, you won't feel much down there the first week or so because they're a little traumatized by everything that happened, but still try to give your brain permission to pay attention to them. So that's the relaxed breathing. The second exercise in the big 2, which is like what you'll work on this first 7 to 10 days postpartum, is simply exhaling with exertion, or exhaling as you move, whether you had a vag delivery or not. When you go to roll over in bed, purse your lips like you're blowing up birthday candles. And if you try it right now and you put your hand on your lower tummy, you feel it kind of naturally engages those hug the baby muscles. And postpartum, hug the baby might, like that specific cue might be a little too much for your brain, but exhale as we roll, that engages all of the muscles to help your brain find the tummy. And if we're post C, it helps protect that incision because the muscles are sharing the load. It's a really cool trick. And it's like, exhale as I roll to my side, exhale as I push up, exhale as I stand up, exhale as I go to pick up baby. It's a very simple thing that you can do to start recruiting the muscles. Negotiating stairs and things. You can go sideways is a little easier than forwards and back if you're feeling particularly weak. And again, exhale with exertion, just take your time. Once we're about 2 weeks post a standard vaginal delivery or 4 weeks post a standard cesarean, and standard means no complications. You didn't have excessive bleeding. You didn't need to have any special medicines. If there are like those special cases, like this time I might be pushed out. So just make sure you talk to a doctor or a one-on-one medical provider. But once we're 2 weeks post standard vag or 4 weeks post standard C, then we can return to the big 3 again. That relaxed breath, supported breath, Kegel and relax. And doing that at that stage, it's a really perfect time for the brain to start to recognize that it's safe for it to connect to those key muscles again. And at that point, when can I exercise? When can I exercise? Your body is still doing so much healing. Lindsay's going to talk about the nutritional pieces of it, but honor the fact that your body is healing a wound that's about the size of a dinner plate on the inside of your uterus, possibly an additional wound from that cesarean. That's a whole lot of energy that you need to give to heal. Plus, if you're breastfeeding, like the caloric demands of breastfeeding, like, oh, my Lanta. So let your energy, and you're probably not sleeping 8 hours, like I don't know, any new mom that is. So let your energy be your guide, and little 5 to 10 minutes functional mobility stuff, pelvic tilts, cat cows with specific attention to, wow, how does my tummy and my mid back feel now that baby's out of my belly and I've got this gigantic it's so fun. Okay. It's glad to see you. And those things we're just talking about, like postpartum exercise. Oh, come on and have a seat. So we kind of went over like the first couple weeks is like just calming your system and like belly breathing to engage to remind the diaphragm it can breathe down, relaxing the pelvic floor, and like exhaling with exertion. And then kind of just surviving. And if we're gonna have a baby shower, like, yes, the nursery is great, but like you matter. I'm gonna say arguably 1,000,000% more than the nursery. So like, can your girlfriends like say, hey, we're gonna help clean your house once a week for the first 6 weeks. We're gonna help with meals. We're gonna hold the baby so you can shower. Like, those kind of things are so. Once we're like 2 weeks post standard vaginal delivery or 4 weeks post a C, as long as nothing's been complicated, then we could kind of start going through what I call are the big three, which I'll go over with you when we're done, but they're relaxed breath, supported breath, and a Kegel, and relax. And if we have enough energy, then we can also do really simple things like pelvic tilts, cat cows, basic yoga, stuff if we're vag delivery, things to start to get your spine moving again. The focus on establishing that beautiful foundation of helping your brain figure out like what's the tummy apart from the pelvic floor and the diaphragm, and respecting that energy balance in those first 4 to 6 weeks, that's what's going to help you bounce back best. And it's really funny, but if we try to rush back, we're going to skip building that foundational connection to those muscles, and it's going to be harder than it's meant to be. And if we exert too much energy, the body is going to enter this like, oh my gosh, you might die, baby might die. They're not going to let you build strength. So like nutritionally, Lindsay's going to talk about, but calories are really, really, really important during this time. From those basic level steps, and you all know me, like I freaking love helping women thrive. Like I see clients in person. I have online programs. There's a world of beautiful online programs. Find the one that speaks to you, and like little 5 to 10 minute bits, starting with that really basic mobility, pelvic tilt, spinal stuff, moving upward to a little bit harder things, mini curls and bridges, sit to stands. We're going to wait to do things like lunges or like plie squats where there's a little more tension on the pubic bone till 6 weeks or beyond. Because regardless of how baby came out, there was a pretty significant strain in the pelvis. And we want to make sure that we not only give us time to develop the basic strength, but we give those tissues time to heal as well. Around that 6 to 8 week period time, that's when we can start to introduce more split leg or, more plie type positions. We can also potentially at that point start increasing cardiac work if it feels okay for you. Every human is different. My first baby, we call him a trick baby. He slept through the night beginning at 3 months. So I slept through the night beginning at 3 months. My second baby didn't sleep more than 2 hours for 10 months. So my physical activity looked very different. I still recovered fully, right? And I like to think of like, well, I'm stronger now than I ever was before I had babies. But a lot of that was that I just honored and took the time. But that next level, like once we feel that we have the energy to start to do squats and lunges and things a little bit wider, a little more cardiovascular, then that's when we can kind of start to add more weights too. And if we always had this baby, adding the weights is a funny thing. Like, oh, don't lift any more than 10 pounds. Well, I have a 30-pound toddler at home. What am I supposed to do, doc? So talk to a pelvic PT who knows your doctor if you're given this like strict weight limit, and we can kind of work with what the doctor is going after to protect you with that weight limit and find ways to keep you functional. Returning to running and jumping. And by that 6 to 8 week period, ladies, your pee, poop, and sexual function, pee and poop function for sure should be normalized. So the first couple of days postpartum, we're going to be peeing our pants whenever we stand up, whenever we walk into a bathroom. Things are just kind of like shot down there. After that second day postpartum, though, the nerves already start to recover. So just don't be shocked by that, because I was shocked by that. I was, oh my gosh. But then that gradually reduces, and by 6 to 8 weeks, we should have normal pee and poop function. Sexual function is a little different for so many reasons. At 6 weeks, the tissues are quote unquote healed to allow for normal sexual function as long as there's not been a complication. That doesn't mean that you have the functional range of motion. And so things like sitting on the rolled towel, doing a self-pelvic floor check, if you know how. If you did perineal stretching when you were pregnant, that'll be familiar to you. Gently feel around. How do things feel? We know the size of our partner or the toy. Do we have enough room? And if we don't, okay, no big deal. Let's work on it though. Do we have the energy? right? If we're breastfeeding, we honestly might not, and that's okay. Just be open with your partner. There's a saying, men or husbands be patient, ladies be generous, and I think it's such a bullshit. Like, you don't be generous, you just be human. You're keeping this human alive. So like your husband can deal with things on their own until you're ready. And that's okay. So feel like the last thing we need is additional pressure. But you want to check for that appropriate range of motion. And if it does hurt and you don't feel that you have strategies for learning how to relax that pelvic floor, talk to a pelvic physio for more specific ideas. I have some dilators. Usually ladies don't need dilators, but sometimes we do. And then the additional just body image ish thing, everything's different. Your body doesn't feel like it's necessarily yours anymore, and that's something that I don't really know. I don't think anyone talked to me about before my babies, but like I didn't want my husband to touch my boobs. They were gorgeous, they were giant, right? I was like, this is great, but like they were for my kids, like not for him at that point. So just being open with like, look, I used to like nipple stimulation, I don't right now. You need to be honest with that, because otherwise it's just going to shut you off, and as soon as you're like, ooh, you're averse to that, your pelvic floor is going to close. And then the last piece of the pelvic floor is if we are breastfeeding, we are in a relatively low estrogen state, which will tend to lead to a drier vag. So if you've never been a lubricant user, you might need it during breastfeeding. And that's just the important things to talk about. And like people don't really explain, like, oh, just use lube. Well, this is why, because you're breastfeeding, your estrogen is relatively low and your pelvic floor might be a little tight. They're all things that we can help with. Okay, we did the sex, we did the basic strength. Oh, building from last part is building kind of from that initial when we can start to do cardio, start to lift weights, to running. It's a continuum. And if you look on my Instagram, there's going to be a few great blogs. The friends don't let friends pee their pants. It's hilarious. But it kind of just talks about like in 2 years ago, the British Journal of Sports Medicine came out with this landmark paper highlighting the checklist for women for returning to run. And it was awesome to have this, right? And it is a wall sit. You need to be at least 12 weeks postpartum to allow passive tissue healing. You've got to do a wall sit for 60 seconds, a plank for 60 seconds, 20 calf raises. And then they did a little bit with like jogging in place for like 60 seconds. But if you're a runner and we want to run 3 miles, the demand on my tissues, and I think the data is, and Dr. Jen, my new PT, who's seeing patients, I'm going to do a shameless plug here. New evals before the end of February, only $150. Yeah, Dr. Jen. Woo! And Dr. Chrissy. Oh my gosh, 2 new patients. 2 new patients. I'm so grown up. But Dr. Jen's a running coach, and she says the impact with running is 2 to 7 times our body weight. So do we think that a minute of a wall sit and a minute of a plank like is adequate tissue preparation for returning to run? No. And again, I love the study. It is leaps and bounds beyond what we ever had. But that study is more of like the baseline thing. And then I want you all. That's okay. Is she okay? We've got a sick puppy. Oh, sweet puppy. I'm sorry. So we can kind of take that checklist, and then between there and running, what are different exercises we can do? And it's adding power and speed to the exercises. So in like a sideline clamshell or Jane Fonda is great. We need to take that into standing if we want to run and jump again. We need to take that standing band extension. And now if running is 120 beats per minute, 180 beats per minute, we need to be going, so half of that would be 60 to 80 per leg. You need to be going thump, thump, thump at that metronome pacing. And when ladies have the leaks postpartum, they might think it's normal, which is wrong. It's common, but not normal, just because ladies don't know what you guys know. And they never had the training of how to connect on the base level and then build up specifically. So that screen is nice that you could check it. And if one thing was super duper hard for you, great, that's a place to start. But if they were all okay, all right, now how could I take this, wall sit and make it a little more applicable to running, and like more like a dynamic lunge. A lunge and a step forward is even a little bit better. Now let's add some speed. So, like I said, play around go to my Instagram and check out, because there's full talks on there, and the blog is going to be populated with really specific ideas. Or work with me or another pelvic PT in person. Like I said, it helps. I didn't have the support that I needed when I had my first baby, and I'm a pelvic PT. And like that was a huge impetus for me creating the online programs and wanting to help ladies, because it's terrible how underserved we are, how much we don't know. So that's the basics of the postpartum kind of PT stuff. And the only additional piece I think is Lindsay's going to talk about the nutrition, but that postpartum depression can happen anytime up to the first 2 years postpartum. And then perimenopause starts at average age of 37 for 10 years. So maternal mental health, mamas, you deserve to feel happy and good. And if you are feeling negative thoughts, disturbing thoughts, you're like, this is not okay that I feel this way, talk to someone and get help. It's not, oh, you need to eat better and sleep more and work harder. Like, okay, maybe there's a component, but if you're trying those things and they're not working, please get help. And we don't want you to be one of those stories we see on the newspaper. And then, with perimenopause, it's like, at 37, it's younger than a lot of us think. But if you start to be feeling anxious, start to have hot flashes, there's things you can do for that, which I think is a great segue into the nutrition piece.
Thanks,
Okay.
Kelly.
Hi.
And my dog is a lot. That was really weird.
Sorry.
Okay, yeah. So I'll preface my portion by saying that the nutrients that you need just after delivery, postpartum, are actually more than what you need during pregnancy. And most of what I'm mentioning is more catered to if you are going to breastfeed, but even if you're not, even if you can't, even if you can't or you don't want to, all of these recommendations are still really great for new mamas and postpartum. So, but this will also include lactation and breastfeeding and everything else. So, yeah. So directly after labor, you really want to focus on electrolytes. And all the fluid that was lost, whether you had excessive bleeding, whether you had a C-section, whether it was natural delivery.
Can I throw in one thing? Yeah. I just realized I forgot. Just because it's the postpartum talk. Yeah, you're doggy too. During labor and delivery, ladies, labor and delivery is a marathon. Would you ever run a marathon without eating or drinking anything? God, no. So why in the Sam hell would we have a baby and not be allowed to eat or drink, right? And doctors watching this, some of those going to be like, because in case we need to sedate you, you'll aspirate. Okay, so if they give you an IV for fluids, if your NPO means nothing for oral, you get an IV for fluids, you need to also ask for some type of a sugar solution in the IV for your own blood sugar. If you are allowed to eat or drink, a bare minimum would be 100 calories an hour or 2 to 3 ounces of water an hour. Compare that to what we recommend a marathon runner, and that's like dismal, but it's something. And it's better than, okay, guest star, he's not going to bother us. He's the computer. Then, but those are key things, and those are something that you can empower your birth partner with. I love empowering the birth partner with, let's try to make sure that birthing human drinks at least 3 ounces of water an hour and eats 100 calories. And that's a nice bare minimum thing that birth partner can do. Okay, sorry.
No, that's great. And that could be like an entirely separate with like what we're even discussing today. They could each be like separate talks on their own. So there's like a lot to cover, but yeah. So yeah, like bone broth, super great. And I have some awesome, really nutrient dense recipes. And I'm going to talk about prep a little bit and all that stuff coming up. Soups, curries, organ meats, if you can handle those, seafood, eggs, warming foods, tea, warm tea. Don't be too afraid of salt. Protein is especially important, especially for any of those tissues that have been torn and stretched and cut. So we really want, proteins are great if you can and if you do eat meat. Red meats, organ meats provide a great amount of protein along with iron and vitamin B12, which is huge. Any B vitamin and vitamin B supplements or all the B's, great. And zinc. And apparently at 3 months postpartum, 30% of women are iron deficient. So we really want to focus on iron, protein, meats, and again, I list more specific things in my handouts, and I'm happy to email ideas and suggestions. And you also really want to focus on foods that are easy to digest, which is a lot of like slow cooking. We won't want to like gun back into like raw foods and like, like we weren't really easy on the system. So like if you can before prior to labor, and you can even start now, like 3 months in, like start putting menus together of meal prepping ideas. Like think about who can help you with that. Pre-made freezer meals, meal delivery service, meal trains, and really try to do that before you go into labor. And also, if possible, if we are going to freeze our meals, we really want to try to freeze them in glass containers, not plastic. Huge. Why? Well, we don't really want plastic in our bodies, right? If we can't access glass containers, at least if you're going to put foods into them, make sure they're cooled down. Like if they're hot and they go in there, that's that's even worse. And then also if they are in plastic and you pull them out of the freezer, and you've prepped and everything, try not to like microheat them up in the plastic. Do whatever you can. So that's always like, a big thing. Other food ideas like omega-3s are huge just post-labor. Again, seafood, eggs, grass-fed beef or bison's super high in iron. And you can even do like meatloaf, meatballs, with any of those. Iodine-rich foods like seafood, seaweed, the nori like seafood or seaweed snacks are great, and like well-cooked, like sweet potatoes and oatmeal and rice, even like salmon cakes or any kind of soup, chicken soup, wild rice soup. Also, if you have like a crock pot or an Instapot, whether you have help or not, like that is going to help you so much after delivery, because it's just the less effort you have to put in to things, the better. And ideally, you would have some of these things ready to go after delivery. But I think utilizing those things when you have a newborn is like super helpful. So I'm just going to like just talk a little bit more specifically about nutrition in terms of lactation. But again, this nutrition advice is still great for people who aren't going to breastfeed. So milk composition can vary according to the mother's diet. Content, our bodies are amazing. We might not have the perfect diet, and our baby will probably be getting a lot of what they need, but the consistency of the milk might vary a little bit. And I'll talk a little bit more of that in a second. But and so again, Kelly and I talked before this, and I was like, I'm not going to go too much into lactation and breastfeeding, but I think it's really important because it does involve the mother. But it does involve the mother, and this is good stuff to know.
Exactly, it's really important.
Yeah, and so like when more time is allowed between feedings, the breast will fill, the milk will be more higher in water content. And so that's great for the infant, like hydration wise, but it's not going to have as much nutrient dense, caloric intake if you're waiting longer between feedings. Again, this is only if you can or want to breastfeed. And so then at the next feeding, the infant may not be able to, consume all the milk available. And they're basically taking in like low fat milk. If that's like, it's a great way to put it. So, and this seems low to me, but from my sources, the daily caloric intake that increases when you are breastfeeding is only about 330 calories a day. That seems like not a lot, but that
seems super low.
Bare minimum. And that's for the first 6 months. And then as the infant gets older, it's at least 400 to 500 calories more, but bare minimum, right? Like maybe you're just recovering still and you're not sleeping and you're just like, I don't have enough, whatever it is. But that's just bare minimum. And then like even losing like 1 pound a week is still adequate enough for the mom to produce really great milk. If you're gunning for more than that a week, like you may not be producing the right kind of milk for your infant. And we also want to like really wait before consciously trying to lose weight until we really are having like a really great milk supply. We are not going to get out of delivery and be like, run the gym, like, you know, we really have to wait until, and that can be up to 2 months until, you know, you really have you know, your infant, your baby's suckling correctly and you're producing good milk. So we just don't want to rush anything, right? So
It's not so you're in the shot. I want to make sure you're in the shot.
oh, sorry. I'm like leaning, I'm like, yeah. I'm here.
We're such pros.
I'm here. I mean, I've got my shoes on.
I brought
oh my gosh, look at you go. Oh, that's cute. We should just do like a pajama top. That would be so okay. We're gonna be in PJs. It's gonna be great. Okay. Yeah, and obviously appropriate fluid intake and adequate rest. Not that that's gonna happen, but we can always go for that. So as many fluids as we can replace as possible. 8 to 12 8-ounce glasses of water or some other beverage. Put salt in your water, whatever you can. Again, bone broths, any kind of broth. Yeah, we want to be replacing things. And then a slow weight loss of no more than about 5 pounds a month actually supports more permanent weight loss and also allows for adequate energy and nutrients for the baby and the mama long term. So again, just take it slow. Like we're not rushing anything. Protein, again, super huge. Again, this is kind of shocking, but bare minimum an extra 25 grams of protein per day if you are breastfeeding. And that's like a 4-ounce salmon or something, you know. I mean, it's not that much, but again, bare minimum. But that's on top of when, you know, if you are pregnant, like you want an average of 71 grams of protein. That's still very small. So again, we're looking at over 100 grams of protein a day if you're breastfeeding. If you're going to do protein shakes, try to do dairy free, because, you know, it might affect both tummies. You know, chicken, salmon, again, dairy free protein shakes, omega-3 fatty acids, again, really important. Tuna. So we want to avoid big fish. Again, with the mercury still, especially for breastfeeding, but like tuna, halibut, bass, not good. Canned light tuna, okay. Salmon, herring. Vitamin D, again, just as important as when you're pregnant, even if you're not pregnant, vitamin D is huge. So if you are going to supplement your infant, they're going to need about 400 IUs of vitamin D a day. If you can avoid that, if the mother can have around 6,400 IUs of vitamin D3 per day, that's enough for the mother and baby without supplementing the baby.
That's cool.
And again, this is all listed here. I know it's like very it's a lot of info.
It's fabulous, Lindsay. Thank you.
Caffeine, it's okay. It's okay. 300 milligrams of caffeine per day has shown no negative effect on producing milk or negative effects on the infant.
But I don't know what that means.
I think it's about like a cup. I think.
That's just cruel.
I know. Well, it's better than nothing.
Yeah, it is better than nothing.
I would say no more than 2 cups, but it's like, it's also hard because it's like, well, how strong do you make your coffee? Like, it's like, it's true. I mean, yeah, at least I'd say 2 cups. But yes, we're back on the caffeine train. Obviously, alcohol, no studies has said that that's okay. About an hour or about half an hour to an hour is when, you know, if you did ingest some alcohol, that would be peaked in your system. And so just kind of keep that in mind if you're just like, you know, if you want to pump, you're going out, whatever, but just know like an hour, half an hour to an hour is like, that's going to be in your system and you do not want to breastfeed at that point. And Kelly can probably speak more than that than I can.
Yeah, alcohol is a neurotoxin. It's terrible. It's just crap. And it's gonna have I'm hoping it's having its cigarette moment right now where like we're just gonna be aghast that we ever made it so normal in our society. So I don't know, tune into how you're feeling during your pregnancy, like if removing alcohol has been a part of that. And really like there's no reason culturally, oh yay, we do it to celebrate. Okay, well, would you have a cigarette in front of your kids to celebrate? Why do you need that to make it special? And I just think for the longevity of your children as well as you, like we owe it to be a good example. And yeah, I loved drinking. I loved the social aspect of it. I loved being with my friends, and I kind of broke up with alcohol gradually, like cut down to like 2 or 3 drinks last year and then stopped completely. I have never felt better. And it's just, and I don't even crave it anymore, right? And of course, alcohol addiction is a totally different bag, and there's different ways to help with that. But again, there can be help if you need it. AA is one round, that doesn't work for everybody. There's other approaches as well. So just please ask for help if you think you need it. We often all use it to cover up big feelings and to cover up anxieties, and especially if we're a sleep deprived mom, we don't want that in the mix. Really killing your brains. Thank you. That's my PSA.
Does it matter when you ingest the caffeine, like as far as breastfeeding?
No, I mean, that's what the studies have shown.
Right.
Again, if you just want to keep it to a minimum, like 1 cup
Right.
has shown no effect really on infant or milks. So, yeah. What a fun.
Caffeine's my love language.
Can't do it. It puts me to sleep immediately. Isn't that crazy? It's my brain chemistry. Put me to bed. And then just a little bit more about milk because I can't stop. The fore milk is the milk that's first released, kind of like I was saying before, like right when you start, when the infant starts feeding, it's higher in water content, and it does meet the baby's hydration needs. It's lower in calories and it's thinner. The hind milk is what comes in about 5 to 10 minutes after the infant starts suckling. That's what's going to be really nutrient rich. And so if you can, and you're able to breastfeed, try to keep that baby on the same breast for at least 5 to 10 minutes so that really nutrient dense, and that's what's going to help the infant grow. Yeah. And so again, that's not for everybody, but don't switch to the other boob until, we really try to empty the first one.
And your boobs, they're not twins, they're cousins. One of them's gonna be a better milk producer than the other. It's hilarious, and you'll just kind of figure that out. Like for me, it was my left one. It got bigger than the right one, and I don't know, I would always like start on the right and end on the left, and like that's normal. It's cool. And then after you're done breastfeeding, they get even smaller.
And also what's really cool about the hind milk is that it's once that comes in and they've had some of that, and the breast empties, that signals to the infant that feeding is over, and later in life that actually helps decrease the chance of obesity and overeating, which is really fascinating. So if you can't tell, I'm an advocate for breastfeeding. But that's really crazy. Yeah. So yeah. Let's see, benefits again. The nutrients in breast milk will most likely again be adequate even if our diet is not perfect. Like we are nowhere near perfect after we give birth. So don't stress over it. I feel like, our parents, even my generation, our parents did crazy stuff. We all turned out mostly fine. So do not freak yourself out over it, right? But the consistency might be a little different with your diet, and everyone's going to be really different too. The better nutrient dense diets we can have, the better the mom is going to be, the better recovery is going to be, and it's going to help the infant too. But don't lose sleep over it. You're already going to be losing sleep. You don't need to think about that too much. Yeah, and then again, protein, calcium, vitamin D, those are all super important. Exclusive breastfeeding versus like just formula or a mix of formula and breastfeeding is the preferred way to get the most nutrients in your infant, especially for the first 6 months. Even up to like 2 years. If you want to go longer, if you really want to be a masochist, do it. It's up to you. As long as the mother and infant are both getting benefits out of it and they both are wanting to do it. The longer the better.
Yeah, you'll know.
And you'll
Like it'll just it's not like super easy. It's a little painful at first. Something I wasn't prepared for. But like again, first baby was a trick baby. Like it was fine. Second baby, I was exhausted and I should have switched to formula before I did. And I don't know, I was stubborn. Again, he was the one that didn't sleep more than 2 or 3 hours. I was promised that it wasn't a dairy allergy because he'd get hives. And when I finally was like, I'm just done with this, and I stopped breastfeeding in my like sleep deprived stupor, I grabbed a soy formula. Damn kid, love you, honey. Slept through the night the next day.
Oh wow.
So it was a lactose sensitivity. And just, but again, like you're sleep deprived, you don't know. And like, had I been a little bit less stubborn, I might have discovered that sooner. And he's fine, and I'm fine. But like, you just know. So don't try to compare it. Do what's best for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, breastfeeding offers protection from gastrointestinal issues and other infections. It's a critical source of energy, especially if they're, sick. And then it helps develop the immune system and digestive system. And for the mom, it decreases postpartum bleeding, decreases risk of various cancers later in life. It even can decrease the risk of osteoporosis later in life.
So cool.
Essentially, the longer you're going to breastfeed your baby, the less inflammation everyone's going to have in their bodies and lower risk for metabolic diseases and other issues. And if you can't or don't want to breastfeed, donor milk is still a much better option than formula. Donor banks, donor milk. I also have listed a website that you can make your own formula from home. Even if it's not like from your own breast milk. So you can check those links out. And then there's also, I listed a couple of brands that have like some of the highest nutrient content for formula if you need to use formula. And there's a whole milk formula, and then there's a goat milk formula if you want to avoid if your baby has an aversion to cow milk. And then just really cool. Sorry, my dog is making all kinds of gremlin noises. I'm sorry, sweetie. What's really cool is that the baby's saliva literally transfers into information through the nipple to the mom and tells the mom what they need in that milk. That is wild.
So crazy.
It's so crazy. And we can even sense like a 1 degree difference temperature change in our infant's body if they're breastfeeding. And so that can tell us like, oh, we need to produce something different, or maybe they have a fever, whatever's going on. Like we can kind of adjust. Like it's so wild.
There's a video of bacteria versus breast milk. That's amazing. It's a microbiologist. She puts like some little bacteria on a slide, and she looks in it, you can see it all zooming around. Then they put the breast milk on the slide, and within 10 minutes, all the bacteria is dead. It's so cool.
That's so crazy.
I know.
Okay, enough about boobs for now. Let's talk about postpartum depression. Less fun. It might be one of the most underdiagnosed conditions in our country. If we are experiencing that, it can definitely have an effect on our infant in terms of brain development. If you are breastfeeding, there is a lower chance of postpartum depression. It's typically characterized. Hey, hi, come here. Typically characterized by like a major depressive episode. 1 month, it can even be sooner than that after delivery. Even 2 years, like Kelly said. And about 10 to 15% of women will experience PPD.
So 1 in 10. So make sure your partners and your team, your village know about that, so they can look out for you if you're not able to look out for yourself.
So symptoms are like restlessness, anxiety, depression, like this feeling of worthlessness, and it doesn't go away. There's a difference between that and like baby blues. and Kelly might be able to even speak more to that than I can, but baby blues are just like PPD is just a much deeper sense of anguish, I guess. So to minimize it, and there's like varying studies. Some studies say that more nutrient dense diets can really help with this, and some kind of argue that it might not make that much of a difference. But all we can do is do the best with our nutrients. So again, getting the, our omega-3 fatty acids and all of our our B vitamins, calcium, iron, selenium. And again, I've listed more things on my handouts more specifically. And it can also affect milk production as well, if you have that. And it also affects the ability to maintain adequate milk supply. So also, what happens when we're really stressed out and we don't sleep? Cortisol levels increase. You know what affects? That affects milk supply, in addition to mental health. And so it's just really important, again, to pay attention to, what you're feeling and to have a supportive partner if you have a partner. And find what you need that can, that can work. But cortisol levels, big deal. Also another one, thyroid levels really go up and down after delivery. And so, and it can present similarly to PPD, in terms of depression, anxiety, restlessness. And so if you do have insurance and you're able to, it's always, especially if you're feeling like you're having some of these symptoms, if you can get a thyroid panel done, it might give you some, some information. But things that can help with PPD and thyroid dysfunction herbally that are safe in postpartum, ashwagandha is huge. Motherwort, magnesium, lavender tea, even lemon balm tea, and also St. John's wort. Again, that's another one that's a little up in the air, but mainly just because they're not quite varying studies say sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it is safe in postpartum. And topically, if you have had like an episiotomy or something, that can, St. John's wort can really help with pain and healing. So yeah, to know. Yeah, moving on to exercise, again, postpartum and during lactation. It is encouraged to try to get back to exercise in the following weeks. If, and again, this depends on like if you've had a C-section, how you're feeling, whatever. But it is encouraged. And exercise at like 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate is, again, has shown to not affect milk supply. So we, just doing gentle things, walking, cycling, swimming, Pilates, we don't need to be running marathons. We've just done a marathon. We don't need to do that again. And then weight loss. This is crazy to me. On average, a new mother loses about 15 pounds in the first week after delivery, which is wild, right? Weight loss of, again, more than like 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds a week can decrease milk production and jeopardize nutritional status for mom and baby. So again, we're not pushing this. And then returning to work and school, again, waiting until your lactation and your milk supply is solid is a big deal. Some people don't have that option, and we know that. We live in the USA. And you can continue to breastfeed even after you return to work by getting a breast pump, which is actually really important if you can afford it. And it's also important to the mother to avoid engorgement and mastitis. And this will also help breast milk to continue. And then if you can give the baby a bottle at least 2 weeks before you're going to return to work, that will help them try to get adjusted to that and learn how to suckle. And then you can pump while you're at work. And then when you get home, if you can get the baby back on the boob, it's kind of like, the cycle you want to try to get on. And this will also, if your baby has to go to daycare or go somewhere else, there's germs galore. And doing this breastfeeding will help minimize germ, transfer in those new environments for them. I've also on my handout listed some amazing information about milk storage if you are going to pump. There's certain temperatures and all kinds of stuff. And then I think really my last thing is just some random things like organic cloth diapers if we can, like glass bottles again if we're putting formula or breast milk, whatever. And then avoid environmental toxins. That's best for you and your baby. Products with no perfumes or dyes, filtered water, and detergents with no, that includes detergents, lotion, shampoos for both mom and baby. And so that was just like very much scratching the surface because there's so much to talk about, but it's not just about nutrition. It's about your environment and it's about the mom, but whatever the mom does and whatever the environment is going to affect your baby. And so it's all connected. And I'm happy to, give more specifics if anyone wants to reach out. If you're like, I'm not getting enough, I'm having trouble producing enough milk, or I'm just really fatigued, or I just don't know what kind of recipes put together. If my resources don't provide that, like definitely just reach out and we can get more specific. So
yeah, it's so important. It's about healing too, to become more resilient for postpartum and then whatever's after, right? If there's more babies or not, we need to heal ourselves so that we can enjoy our bodies the rest of our lives. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna stop the live stream and then we can take some questions.
Oh, baby down.
I'll drop my bike. I'll drop my bike.
Baby
Oh, no,
down.
there's the pet stop. That's hilarious. The pet stop.
Baby down.
Okay, this is gonna be funny if I never started the live, but
Stop.
I think it will start. I saw like people like the.
okay, cool.
Oh my God, that would be hilarious.
It might have stopped at some point while we were because the guy got a low battery warning, but it's okay. We got it on here. We will stop recording here. Stop.